Mr. Grinch, you really are a heel. You're as cuddly as a cactus, you're as charming as an eel, Mr. Grinch.
The numbers don't lie. Corporate America has a rope around the neck of the middle class in this country, and they're tightening the noose on really any fast hope of economic recovery. The numbers are going to be pretty much the same for a while. The Federal Reserve is projecting high unemployment through 2011 and up to the next election. So this is what we have to look forward to. This is on the heels, my friends, of corporate America having its best quarter ever. The Fed predicts 9% unemployment at the end of next year and about 8% in late 2012. I think that's lofty myself. Now, the Republican Party, of course, will use these numbers to make President Obama a one-term president. That, of course, is the mission. In the meantime, the corporate sector, well, their profits shot up a record 28% in the third quarter. At the same time, they only spent 7.6% more on employee compensation. Well, that means that big business is really sitting on the record profits instead of really investing in American workers. Where is that investment going? Here's what the headline ought to read, quote, corporate suits are cutting a fat hog on emerging markets, and those markets are overseas. The Washington Post reports one of the reasons for the record third quarter profits from U.S. firms is because they are doing business overseas, and those numbers have shot up. Now, it's completely un-American, in my opinion, for U.S.-based companies to turn their back on American workers, American wage earners, while they're doing things on the cheap overseas. Where's the economic patriotism in all of this? Boehner and McConnell, they don't give a damn. They're aiding and abetting the outsourcing of American jobs. They stand ominously silent, okay? At the same time, they stand in the way of helping the 15 million Americans who are out of work, because we're only going to go so far in these extraordinary times when it comes to unemployment benefits. Democrats have a small window of opportunity to save people from losing all of their unemployment benefits when they get back to Washington next week. Now, whose side do you stand on? If they don't pass an extension by next Tuesday, 800,000 Americans will instantly get cut off. And it's going to get worse. And if they don't do it in December, 1.2 million people will be left out in the cold. More numbers, more on the line, more hardship.
Priority one's got to be more jobs for more Americans.
The American people want us to create jobs.
Create jobs.
The issue is jobs.
Creating jobs, new jobs. It was all about jobs, new jobs, even more jobs.
You're a mean
Jobs is an easy word to say. It's one syllable, starts with a consonant, ends with a consonant. Is an easy vowel sound in the middle. Very few people have trouble with with B there. Jobs. Jobs. Easy word to say, and everyone in Washington says it a lot. But for all the saying of the word jobs, voting for things that actually make jobs is proving harder for many politicians to squeeze out of their face. The Congressional Budget Office was asked this year to look in its nonpartisan way, its just the facts ma'am way, its math-only way, at policy options for creating jobs. Look at these 11 different policy options, CBO, and tell us, if we did these things, which one would create the most jobs? What would be the best? The one that came in, ichiban numero uno, tippy-top cream of the crop, was extending unemployment benefits. And so the Senate today rejected that in favor of just saying the word jobs a lot, in the hopes that those of us watching at home would mistake their frequent pronunciation of the word jobs for an actual commitment to creating them. The Congressional Budget Office is not partisan. They just do the math on proposed policies to see what their impact would be. And when they studied 11 different proposed policies for their effect on jobs numbers, the #1 most effective one was aid to the unemployed. So,
you're a foul one, Mr. Grinch.
I would like to formally, Madam President, ask unanimous consent that the Finance Committee be discharged for further consideration of S3981, a bill to provide for a temporary extension of unemployment insurance provisions.
Is there objection?
Madam President,
the senator from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Madam President. I object, and I have a paid-for
The
alternative.
objection is heard.
Because the Senate said no Unemployment benefits will begin to expire for millions of Americans in, depending on when you're watching the show, a couple of hours from now, at midnight tonight. Is this because the Senate doesn't care about the jobs numbers, or God forbid, for political reasons, they want the job numbers to be bad? Or do we take a rosier view of the world in which it's not that members of the Senate are actively wishing harm on the American people for political gain, but rather they're just fundamentally incompetent? Speaking now for the fundamentally incompetent, Congressman John Shattuck.
You nauseate me.
Would you vote for the extension of unemployment benefits right now, today, up or down, yes or no?
If they were paid for and if we extend the tax cuts. Of course, Republicans don't want to tax the job creators because that will bring revenue down.
What about the fact that unemployment benefits pumped into the economy are an immediate benefit to the economy? Immediate.
No, they're not. Unemployed people hire people? Really? I didn't know that.
People spend money, Congressman, because they have no money.
So your answer is it's the spending of money that drives the economy, and I don't think that's right.
Unemployment checks, people don't spend that money?
You're a mean one.
No. They'll spend as little of it as they can because they'll hold on to it as long as they can.
The real story is what you get on the Ed Show. There are real Americans who have lost their jobs and are now getting kicked to the side of the road by their own government. I think that's a bigger story.
It is a big story, Ed, and it's the kind of story I'm glad to see you lead with. You had Senate Minority Leader, I don't know if you saw this, John Kyle comes out. Kyle has to admit that unemployment benefits are absolutely helpful to the economy. He calls it a necessary evil. But what he says is they're a necessary evil, but in doing that, we will this is his word, we're never going to be able to shrink the government down small enough to where we can drown it in the bathtub. And so what he's saying there is exactly what we've known for, for all these years. Republicans don't want government, they don't want regulation, they don't want safety net. They want an America where there are no rules. It is a laissez-faire America, very much like we saw right prior to the Great Depression. And it's an America that right now has 50 million Americans living in poverty, 1 in 5 children. As we sit here at Thanksgiving, 1 in 5 children in America went to bed without enough to eat. 83%. This is a staggering number. 83% of all U.S. stocks are in the hands of 1%. Americans. That's never existed in this country except prior to the time that America went into the most dismal depression in its history.
Your heart is full of unwashed socks, your soul is full of gunk, Mr. Grinch. The 3 words that best describe you are as follows, and I quote, stink, stank, stunk,